Stampers, Diane Dimich here at ddStamps.com, and today I'm here to show you how I did this card. It's actually, I cased it from the Occasions catalog, and I just want to show you how I cut the die and how I lined up the stamping for the insert that goes into the pocket. It's an adorable card. I'm sure a designer from Stampin' Up! Worked very hard to make it, and I'm happy to be able to share with you what I've learned about how she did that, or he or she, excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to start with a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I'm just going to run this over to my cutter. And so I cut this the long way. I probably should have scored that too, but I didn't. So anyway, it's 4.25 by 11 is that piece of cardstock, and it's folded in half, so that's at 5.5. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my big shot, because this is how you're going to start with this card. And my platform, my thin die adapter, and my steel plate. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So I want this to be a pocket, so I'm going to cut it along this edge. And so I'm going to lay this on here, and then I'm going to take the die. I see I've got little pieces of paper still left in here. Let me pull those out of there. Run this through the brush. Yeah, you want to make sure, oh, there's one more. Yeah, that you get all your little pieces of paper out. Now this edge of the die is the part that cuts. This part down here does a little bit of embossing and a little bit of cutting out, but I want to make sure I'm going edge to edge on this, and I'm using the side that's going to cut it. Now I actually am going to lay down a little bit of washi tape, just because I want to make sure that that doesn't move on me. So if I do that, that should be good. And then I'm going to take my clear plate, and sometimes I have an issue with this die when I'm putting it through going this way. It doesn't cut in the middle, and that's probably more my big shot than anything. But I could always add like a piece of cardstock. In fact, maybe I might do that. See if that is just enough of a shim to get that to cut through. My big shot, it's the first one I ever owned, and so it's, I don't know, it's as long as we've had a big shot with Stampin' Up! So I don't even know what year that was that I got this big shot. I'm going to run this through a couple of times, and then I'm going to check it. I can tell that having that shim in there, yeah, made a big difference. And I flip it over, it actually did cut all the way through that time. So that's good. That's easy. That's an easy fix. That probably didn't need to be a full-on piece of cardstock. But it didn't hurt it, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. And it's all sticking because it's taped on. And then this will pop off fairly quickly. But if I want to, because I use that, I'm just going to go ahead and pull in my brush and hit it with that. That will make sure that this piece comes off. And then, gosh, I got a big mess going on here. I'm just going to go ahead and run my brush over a few of those kind of little delicate little pieces there. And took most of them out. Those that didn't come out, you can use the pick tool, will work. Also the tips of the scissors usually works. I'll just pull those out. Okay, so I'm going to remove this big shot. This time I'm going to come in with my Stamparatus. And I've actually got the stamps on here that I need, but they're not lined up the way I want them because they're just lined up from what I used the last time, but I want to make sure that they're clean because I don't want to get any of the red ink onto my white cardstock. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold up your card, and I always use my Stamparatus. I use the craft mat underneath it when I'm using photopolymer because it just gives it just a little bit more oomph. This would be fine, but sometimes if I'm stamping in the corner, it will catch that corner if I have that craft mat underneath there. But just for my sake, I just leave it there all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this stamp, making sure it's clean, with the, you probably can't see so good on this, But I'm laying it right along the die cut. And if you have an issue seeing it, you can always take a piece of cardstock or something and slide it down inside there just so it has a contrast. Then you'll be able to see exactly where you want this to line up. Does that make sense? Then I'm going to pick up the stamp. And because I always use the corner, I just need to put my cardstock back in the corner. Now before I stamp it, you want to make sure that this is open. And then you're going to come in, and I'm going to use a lovely lipstick because it's sitting here on my table. And I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. Make sure I'm back up in the corner. Flip that over, stamp it down. And when I put this back up there, you'll see how it matches perfectly. Right where it needs to be, along the edge of that card. So that's the inside of my card. Now see, this is funny. So I showed you that tip, but this actually I stamped on a different piece of cardstock. So let's show that one. But you know what? I'm going to do the green on this one too because I just want you to see. So this time you can leave it open. And you're going to go ahead and line up the stamp around those flowers. And then pick it up with your Stamparatus, and then I'll use a little bit more and then stamp this down, pick it up, and then you'll see how pretty that is. And so that's just a great card right there. I really didn't want to stamp the inside, but that's okay. It just shows you another way to do it. So now I'm going to grab another piece of cardstock. And I'll just take the piece that I have here from this one. And I cut this one down to be like 3 3/4 by 5. And I want it to slide right down inside there. Okay, so to do the layer for this card that's going to slide inside here, when I lay this in here, you can see that I have cut this so that there's 1/4 inch on each side in the top. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down one of my pieces of the paper that we get for the Stamparatus, and you can see where you can bring it down 1/4 inch on both sides. Now this time I am going to use the magnet. I don't always use the magnets, and usually if I do use the magnets, I use one because they're so strong that they can end up clicking together and breaking. So all I need to do, I'm already lined up here because I brought this down 1/4 on both sides, 1/4 inch on both sides. Stamp that down. Make sure my paper's lined up again. You can see how you can make a lot of these once you start and you figure out what your card's going to look like. You could actually sit down in front of the TV and just go to town with not a whole lot of thought. So once I've done that, I'll take my card, and you can see how that's going to line, that little pocket's going to line up. So then I'm going to take my card. Let me get this stuff out of the way. I'm making a huge mess today. We'll just use a little bit of our green glue. I just want to add a little. I don't want a ton on there. I want to make sure we keep this a pocket. So I'm just going to put just a tiny bit. Can you see it? I just did a tiny, I don't know how I can show it to you. Just a tiny little strip on there. And then realize that that's actually going to spread out. So you really don't want too much. And then this piece will just slide right down in as your pocket. And it matches up perfectly. And actually when your person gets their card and they pull this section out, they'll still have that beautiful card in the background. And so then what I did on this one is I actually embossed. This is just a piece of cardstock that I embossed "You Are Loved" in gold, and I added a little bit of the baker's twine. And this actually was white baker's twine that I dyed into the balmy blue. Added a couple pearl flowers, which are in this actual die set. Let me show it to you. So this is a die that cuts those flowers out, and I cut those 4 flowers and then added a little pearl inside of them, and then added a clear heart gem to that. So that's how you do that card. I hope that helps. I hope that shows you how to line up your stamps with your dies. You cut your die first on this one and then line up your stamps. So I hope that helps, and if you haven't already done so, you may want to visit my website and sign up for my newsletter at www.ddistamps.com, where I send out weekly tips, tricks, and techniques, and also keep you informed about when I'm going to be live on Facebook and YouTube. So thanks, and have a great day. Bye.